Before everything fell apart, life was normal. Maybe even good. I had a steady job in IT, the kind of gig where you punch in, punch out, and nobody bothers you if the servers stay online. My wife, Emily, was a school counselor. Empathetic, gentle, or at least, that's how I used to describe her. We'd been married 8 years. No kids. Not by choice, but we'd learned to live with it. Our routine was so predictable, it was almost comforting. Monday night pasta, Thursday laundry, Saturday farmer's market. We had matching mugs. We finished each other's sentences. When I say normal, I mean it in that quiet, unremarkable way that makes you believe the chaos of the world won't touch you. Until it does. It started with fatigue. I brushed it off. I was 38, not 18. I figured work stress, poor sleep, whatever. Then came the night sweats. The bruises that didn't fade. The weird ache in my back. Emily was the one who pushed me to go to the doctor. Blood tests, a second opinion, then a third. I'll never forget the way the oncologist looked at me when he said it. Like he wanted to soften the blow but didn't know how. Stage 3. Lymphoma. Aggressive. My ears were ringing. I couldn't feel my hands. Emily grabbed them, whispered, "We'll get through this." And for a moment, I believed her. Chemo was scheduled to start the following week. They told me to prepare for hair loss, nausea, exhaustion. I nodded like I was listening. But in my head, I was just seeing the calendar circling dates, wondering how many I'd have left. That night, we didn't talk much. Emily made dinner. We sat in silence. Her hand reached for mine once, then pulled back. I figured she was just processing, like I was. But looking back now, I think part of her had already left the room. At first, Emily played the part. She came to the appointments. She held the bucket when I puked. She picked up my prescriptions, even made a little chart on the fridge to track my meds. But something was off. Not in any huge, dramatic way. There were no screaming matches or slammed doors. Just silence. Long pauses in conversations, where there used to be easy banter. She'd scroll through her phone at dinner instead of asking how I felt. The warmth in her eyes gone, like someone had switched it off. I convinced myself it was the stress. Watching your husband go through chemo isn't exactly a romantic getaway. I told myself she was tired, that she just needed space. But deep down, something didn't sit right. She stopped sleeping in our bed around the 3rd week, said I was tossing too much, that she needed rest to be strong for both of us. I nodded, tried to believe her. But every night, lying there alone, I could feel the cold void where she used to be. There was a time when she'd text me during the day just to say she missed me. Now, hours would go by. Sometimes, I'd send a message and get nothing until night. "Busy with work," she'd say. Just a lot going on. But I knew her job. I knew her schedule. I knew when she was lying. The little things added up. She stopped making my favorite soup when I got sick. Stopped asking the doctor questions. She used to cry after each appointment. Now, she stared at the floor. Distant. Mechanical. One night, I caught her sitting in the living room, staring at her phone with this half-smile. The kind of smile I hadn't seen directed at me in months. When she noticed me, she jumped, locked the screen, and muttered something about an old friend reaching out. It should have been a red flag, but I was too tired to argue, too scared of what I might find if I looked closer. So I just nodded, and let the silence grow louder between us. The first day of chemo was surreal. Sterile walls, the faint smell of disinfectant. A nurse with tired eyes tried to make small talk while hooking me up to a machine that felt more like a countdown than a cure. Emily sat beside me, earbuds in, scrolling through her phone. She didn't say much, just offered a tight smile when our eyes met. I tried not to read into it. I needed her there, even if only physically. The IV dripped slowly. Time moved like wet cement. The nausea kicked in halfway through the ride home. Violent. unforgiving. My body convulsed, like it was trying to purge something deeper than poison. Emily helped me to the bathroom, held my shoulder once but let go too quickly. Like she was afraid to catch it. Like being near me made her uncomfortable. Within days, the fatigue became unbearable. My limbs felt like dead weight. I could barely lift my head without feeling dizzy. I stopped shaving, stopped checking emails. I just existed. In a fog of medication and pain, Emily started spending more time out of the house. "Groceries," she'd say. "I need air." Hours would pass. Sometimes I'd call, just to hear her voice, but she wouldn't pick up. Meals turned into leftovers I had to microwave myself. She stopped asking if I wanted to sit together. She stopped noticing the bruises on my arms from the injections, the way my hands shook when I tried to pour a glass of water. One night, I asked her if she was okay. She blinked, surprised by the question. Then she shrugged. "I don't know. Are you?" That was the moment I knew. Whatever we had, whatever bond we'd built over 8 years was cracking. Quietly, efficiently, and I didn't have the strength to stop it. The calls stopped first. At the start, people checked in, old friends, co-workers, even extended family. They sent flowers, made promises. "We're here for anything you need." But as weeks turned into months, the messages slowed to a trickle. Then silence. No one wants to sit with sickness. They mean well. But eventually, life moves on for everyone but you. Emily, meanwhile, became a ghost inside our own home. She'd leave before I woke up, come back late. I'd ask where she'd been. She'd say, "Just driving." No explanation, no apology. Just an empty look that told me not to press. I stopped asking. There were days I'd lie in bed and listen to the hum of the refrigerator just to feel like something around me was still alive. My phone stayed silent. The door stayed closed. Even the cat stopped coming around. I tried joining a support group online. Typed out my story once, then deleted it. I couldn't explain the kind of pain that wasn't just physical. It was the kind that made you question if you mattered at all anymore. I watched the seasons change from the same window. Summer sunlight turned to brittle autumn gray. My reflection grew thinner, more unfamiliar. Like I was disappearing slowly, and no one had noticed. Emily would come home, drop her purse, disappear into the other room. I'd hear her laughing on the phone soft, low, the kind of laugh I hadn't heard in our conversations for months. I wanted to ask who it was, but I didn't. I couldn't, because part of me already knew, and the other part was too afraid to hear her say it out loud. It was a Thursday morning. I'd just finished throwing up in the sink because I couldn't make it to the bathroom in time. My hands trembled as I gripped the counter, staring into the mirror at a man I barely recognized. Pale, hollow-eyed, fragile. I shuffled back to bed, pulled the covers over me, and tried to catch my breath. That's when my phone buzzed. A message from Emily. Just one line. "I can't do this anymore." I read it 3 times. 4. My brain couldn't make sense of it. I thought maybe she meant the day, maybe something had happened at work. Maybe she was just venting. So I replied, "What do you mean?" No response. I waited. 5 minutes. 10. I called her. Straight to voicemail. I texted again. "Are you okay?" Still nothing. I stared at the screen like it would somehow explain itself. But it just sat there. Cold. Final. That one sentence hitting harder than the diagnosis ever had. The woman who promised to stand by me in sickness and in health had just chosen to leave, in the middle of my chemo, with a text. I couldn't move, couldn't think. The silence of the house felt heavier than ever before. Her perfume still lingered on the throw blanket draped over the couch. Her toothbrush was still in the bathroom. Her keys weren't. I lay there, heart pounding, waiting for the door to open. For her to come back in and say it was a mistake. A moment of weakness. Anything. But the door stayed closed. And the text stayed on my screen. By the evening, I still hadn't heard from her. Panic gave way to numbness. I tried calling her again. Nothing. So I messaged her sister, someone I hadn't talked to in months. The reply came quick. She's staying with someone else right now. She needs space. I asked who. I already knew, but I had to hear it. Her sister hesitated. Then finally, Jason, her ex, from before you. The words hit like a freight train. Jason, the one she always claimed was toxic. The one she swore she was glad to be rid of. The one who'd cheated on her in college. That Jason. She'd walked out of my life and straight back into his arms. Just like that. I dropped the phone, sat there in silence. My mind raced with questions that didn't have answers. Had this been going on for weeks? Months? Was it ever really about me getting sick? Or was I just an inconvenience? I checked her location history. Disabled. Our shared cloud? Empty. She'd wiped everything clean. Later that night, one of my old friends, Dave, texted me out of the blue. "I'm so sorry, man. I saw her with him at the diner last week. I didn't know how to tell you." That was the moment it became real. She hadn't just left. She'd replaced me. While I was in a war for my life, she had already started a new chapter without even saying goodbye. And for the first time in all of this, I didn't feel sick. I felt betrayed, completely and irreversibly broken. The days that followed were a blurron, long, aching stretch of hours that didn't seem to end. I was still sick, still battling cancer, but now I had to figure out how to do it alone. The house felt bigger, emptier, colder. Every corner reminded me of her jacket still hanging by the door, a half-empty bottle of her shampoo in the shower. She hadn't taken everything, just enough to say she wasn't coming back. I couldn't eat, could barely sleep. The chemo was working, but it was brutal. My weight dropped. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, heart racing, expecting to see her curled beside me only to remember she wasn't mine anymore. Then came the practical side of the betrayal. The shared bank account? Wiped. She transferred everything into a separate one, left me just enough for groceries maybe. Our rent was still due, the bills piling up. I called the landlord and explained the situation. He gave me a few extra weeks, but it was clear the clock was ticking. I tried reaching out to a lawyer, but even that felt impossible in my condition. The idea of dragging her into court while dragging an IV pole behind me was just laughable. The worst part wasn't the money. It was the silence. No apology, no explanation, just gone. People say heartbreak hurts, but heartbreak during chemo? That's a different kind of pain. It makes you question everything you're worth, your memories, your sanity. Was any of it real? Had she been waiting for a reason to run? Did my sickness just give her the excuse she needed? I thought about giving up, more than once. I'd stare at the ceiling, counting cracks, wondering what the point was, wondering if anyone would notice, if I just stopped trying. But even in those moments, something kept me breathing. Maybe stubbornness, maybe the tiniest spark of hope. But it wasn't for her anymore. It was for me. Grief does strange things to your mind. I'd be washing a dish or staring at the TV, and suddenly there she'd be, laughing on our wedding day, sprawled across the couch in her favorite hoodie, whispering, "We're forever," while her fingers traced circles on my chest. But the more I looked back, the more I started to see the cracks I had ignored. There was the way she always changed the subject when I talked about having kids, the way she used to flinch slightly when I reached for her hand in public, how she never quite deleted Jason's number even after I asked. Little things. Things I dismissed because I trusted her, because I loved her. I remembered a dinner party a year before I got sick. She disappeared for 20 minutes to take a call. When she came back, her lipstick was smudged and she avoided my eyes. I asked if everything was okay. She smiled too quickly and said, "Of course." I believed her. There were texts I wasn't allowed to read. Nights she had to stay late at work. Sudden mood swings followed by forced affection. I used to think it was stress. Now I know better. But it wasn't all lies. That's what made it so confusing. There were real moments, quiet nights, inside jokes, the way she'd sing along to terrible 90s songs while brushing her teeth. I held her when her mother passed. She held me when I got my first job offer. Those memories weren't fake, but somewhere along the way, she changed. Or maybe I just didn't see who she really was. The woman I married was kind, warm, full of empathy. The woman who left me with a single text during chemo? I don't know her. Maybe I never did. And that truth hit harder than the diagnosis ever did. Because it wasn't just my body that had betrayed me. It was the one person I thought never would. There was a stretch of about 5 days I don't fully remember. Just fragments. Throwing up into a towel because I couldn't make it to the bathroom. Waking up on the kitchen floor, opening the fridge and realizing there was nothing but expired milk and condiments. My body was breaking down, and my mind wasn't far behind. No one was calling. Emily was gone. My friends, what few I had left, had stopped checking in. I couldn't blame them. Who wants to watch someone rot in slow motion? I tried to make tea one morning. My hands shook so badly I dropped the mug. It shattered, slicing open my foot. I sat down right there, bleeding and sobbing, and didn't even try to clean it up. I just sat for hours. That night, the pain was unbearable. Not the physical kind, the kind that seeps into your soul and makes everything feel pointless. I laid in bed, watching the ceiling fan spin slowly, and I seriously thought about ending it. Just stopping the meds. Letting the cancer do its thing. Letting it all go quiet. There wasn't a dramatic moment. No note. No final message. Just an overwhelming sense that maybe this was how it ends for people like me, abandoned, forgotten, and sick. But I woke up the next morning. Barely. And something inside me whispered, not yet. Her name was Tara. She was a nurse I hadn't seen before, young, probably mid-30s, with tired eyes and a voice that didn't pretend everything was okay. She didn't do the fake cheerfulness most hospital staff rely on. She just sat down beside me during one of my infusions and said, "Rough morning?" I nodded. She didn't press. Just let the silence sit for a moment. Then, without asking, she handed me a granola bar and a bottle of water. It was the smallest thing, but I hadn't eaten all day. I took it, slowly, chewed, swallowed, and something about that moment grounded me, like I mattered, even just a little. Tara came back the next session, and the next, always with a bar, always with a few minutes of quiet conversation. She didn't ask about Emily, didn't ask about the past. She just showed up, consistently. That consistency was a lifeline. One afternoon, she handed me a flyer for a local cancer support group. I didn't want to go. The idea of sitting in a circle and spilling my guts to strangers felt unbearable. But she smiled and said, "You don't even have to talk. Just listen." So I went. I didn't speak the first 2 meetings, but I listened. To a guy with leukemia whose wife stuck it out. To a woman with breast cancer who was raising 2 kids alone. To stories worse than mine, somehow, and stories better. But we were all in the same storm. And something started to shift. Not overnight. But I began to realize maybe I didn't have to fight for Emily anymore. Maybe I could fight for me. I didn't notice the change at first. It wasn't some big cinematic moment where I leapt out of bed or looked in the mirror and saw a warrior staring back. It was smaller. I woke up one morning and realized I wasn't nauseous. For the first time in weeks, my hands weren't shaking. I made toast and actually tasted it. I looked out the window and noticed the sky was blue, not just there, but really blue. The next round of blood work came back. My white cell count had improved. The tumors were shrinking. The treatment was working. That news should have made me cry. Instead, I just sat there, stunned, like I didn't know what to do with the idea of hope anymore. But little by little, I began rebuilding. I found my old sketchbook buried in a closet, edges curled and dusty. I hadn't touched it in years. The first few attempts were awful shaky lines. Bad proportions, but it felt good to create again. Something that was mine. Something not connected to cancer or loss. I started writing too. Just short journal entries at first, then full pages, then stories. I poured everything in: the pain, the rage, the fragments of memory. It didn't heal me overnight, but it made the weight bearable. Tara kept showing up. Quiet support, never intrusive. Eventually, she became less of a nurse and more of a friend. She read my stories, told me I should share them. "There's power in telling the truth," she said. Maybe she was right, because for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like a victim anymore. I felt like a person again. It was a Tuesday. Ordinary, gray-skied, unremarkable until I opened my front door and saw her. Emily, standing there with a sweater too thin for the weather and that familiar twist in her mouth, the one she wore when she didn't know what to say. "I didn't know where else to go," she said. I didn't invite her in. We stood in the doorway like two strangers who'd once shared a life. She looked thinner, tired. There was a tremble in her voice when she spoke. "I made a mistake." Her words hung in the air like smoke, hard to grab, impossible to ignore. I thought I couldn't handle it. I was scared. "Jason, it wasn't what I thought it'd be. She trailed off, eyes shining like she expected me to catch her. Like I was still the man who used to fix her broken moods. But I wasn't. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't cry. I just looked at her and said, "I survived without you, and I'm better for it." She flinched. Not like I'd hit Herbert. Like she'd finally felt the weight of what she did. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I nodded. "I hope you mean that." We stood there a moment longer. Then she turned, walked down the steps, didn't look back. And for the first time since she left, I didn't want her to. Finishing treatment felt like coming up for air after nearly drowning. There was no victory parade, no crowd cheering as I rang the bell. Just quiet. A nurse handed me a paper with discharge instructions, and I walked out into the sunlight free, but unsure of what came next. I was different. Not just physically, though that too. My body bore the marks of the war I'd fought: weight lost, hair gone, skin a little sallow. But it was deeper than that. I'd changed in places no one could see. The house didn't feel like a grave anymore. I'd painted the walls, donated the old furniture, tossed out every reminder of a life I no longer belonged to. Emily's things? Gone. Even the mugs with our initials. One day, I passed by a local community center and saw a flyer, "Creative Writing for Recovery." I stared at it longer than I should have, then tore it down and stuffed it in my pocket. I joined the next week. It was awkward at first, but it gave me something to show up for. A group of strangers who didn't pity me, didn't know my past, and didn't expect anything. Just people telling their stories. I started reading mine out loud. People listened. They heard me. That was new. I met Claire there. She'd lost her sister to cancer. We talked after class one night, then again the next week. It wasn't romantic, not yet. Just real, easy, honest. For now, that was enough. I started walking more, eating better, sleeping without dread. I wasn't trying to get back to who I was before. I was building someone new. Sometimes I sit by the window with a cup of tea and think about everything that's happened. It feels like a story I read somewhere, like it couldn't have been me. But it was. I survived cancer. I survived betrayal. I lost everything I thought I needed, and still, I'm here. Stronger? Maybe. Wiser? Definitely. Scarred? Absolutely. But healing. I used to think love meant giving someone every part of yourself. Now I know that's not true. You can love someone deeply and still hold on to your dignity, your boundaries, your self-worth. Emily didn't break me. She revealed me. Revealed what I was capable of. what I could survive, what I didn't need to carry anymore. People will fail you, sometimes the ones closest to you. But that doesn't mean you stop believing in people altogether. It just means you stop handing your soul to those who haven't earned it. My story isn't about cancer or even heartbreak. It's about choosing to stay, choosing to fight, choosing me when nobody else did. And I don't regret a thing, because I like the man who came out the other side. And for the first time in a long time, that's enough. I used to think survival meant going back to how things were, back to my old job, my old routines, the life I had before everything crumbled. But some things don't fit anymore. And that's not a loss, it's growth. I didn't return to IT. I didn't want the sterile cubicle or the fluorescent lights. I started teaching workshops at the community center, writing, storytelling, healing through words. I didn't expect to love it, but I do. There's something powerful about helping others shape their pain into something honest, something theirs. Claire and I still meet for coffee sometimes. We've gone on a few walks, sat through awkward silences, laughed at things that probably weren't that funny. We're not labeling anything, no pressure. Just two people learning to trust again at our own pace. And that's enough for now. I wake up early these days, not because I have to, but because I want to. There's a calm to mornings. I journal, I draw, I breathe. My hair is growing back. My skin's not as pale. I've even gained a little weight. The mirror still surprises me sometimes, but it's no longer a stranger staring back. Every scar tells a story now, not just of pain, but of survival, of becoming. There are days when the loneliness creeps in, when memories of Emily try to crawl back through the cracks, but I don't fight them off like I used to. I let them pass through, acknowledge them, then let them go. She was a chapter, not the whole book, and I've got a lot of pages left to write. This isn't the life I planned, but it's the life I'm choosing. One built on truth, on strength I didn't know I had, on peace I fought like hell to find. If you're in the dark right now, sick, betrayed, alone, I won't tell you it gets easy. But I'll tell you this, there is light. Sometimes it's faint, sometimes it flickers, but it's there. And if you keep moving, even when it hurts, even when you're crawling, you'll find it, just like I did. This story was brutal, but this story on the right-hand side is even more insane.